Okay, perfect. I'm going to just really talk about one thing, and that's about what we do for customers. If you read all the business books in the world, I can tell you in one line, there's one important line in all those books. If you read that one line, then you don't have to read all the rest. And it's a line from a book from 1950 by a guy called Peter Drucker, and in it he said, the purpose of a business is to create a customer. If you understand that, you don't have to worry about anything else in all the other X million books that are out there. The other thing that quite a lot of people have looked at is a presentation by a guy called Simon Sinek on getting to why. The interesting thing about this getting to why, when you go to the references that he's talking about, people like Steve Jobs now, they're not talking about why, they're talking about who, they're talking about the customer. So what I want to do is talk about what we do for customers in terms of support, reliability. I want to talk about our domain knowledge, learning, and then finally I want to talk about the software that we offer you. As you can see, there's one customer here who has over 850 support queries, and the support team still talk to him. I'm not going to embarrass him by saying, Jeremy, that's an awful lot of tickets, and I wouldn't dream of that, but it is. A couple of years back, we had a user strikes back, and Dave, who's sitting at the front of the things, said, what differentiates memoQ? And he said, well, it's support. And this is something that's been part of our DNA at the beginning. At the back of the room is Istvan Lengel. One of the really big things he did within memoQ was push the whole idea of support. And we also, somewhere in this room, is Gregor Vander, who was probably our first support engineer, although he also did everything else as well. So, from writing documentation to bug testing, but part of what he did at the time was support. So I'd just like to thank those two people. If you look at the statistics here, you can see that when we get below 96% in customer rating, we start wondering why, what happened. And this is very unusual because I don't know about you, but I only fill a customer rating thing when I'm annoyed. And I think that's the common thing. If you're happy, you usually just, oh yeah, everything's sorted, it's not a problem. But, up to date this year, we've had a 98% customer rating. Last year was 96, which is, for us, it's not great. But for anybody else, it's pretty brilliant. One of the other things that's been big to memoQ since the beginning is reliability. We have had an issue that with people that use other CAT tools, for example, they hadn't realized that when you have a power cut in any competitive product, you used to lose everything. When you had that sort of thing within memoQ, you lost the last segment. And we've always tried to do something like that, and we're trying to become more and more reliable. And as we have more and more customers that are enterprises, reliability is a completely different thing now to what it was then. What we're trying to do with reliability is around cybersecurity. We have got ISO 27001. We're going for SOC 2, which when we started this process, we thought that they were the same and whatever, but they're not. The SOC 2 is a much more thorough investigation, which involves a 6-month investigation of the company, and it really pushes that, if you've got that, you are a company that's sort of verified to have a good standard of cybersecurity. We've appointed a Chief Information Security Officer. Since he's come along, he's obviously terrorized us with all these policies where we can't use USB sticks and whatever. But this is the basis that our customers expect in order for us to be reliable. We've also got a compliance officer, a legal counsel who's a member of the management team. Both the CISO and the compliance/legal officer are a member of the management team, and it makes us much more reliable for enterprise customers. What we mean by domain knowledge is essentially that we know what you do. The graphic here is probably irrelevant, but I didn't know what to put, and so I put something about the competitive landscape. But what we tried to do is to figure out what it is you do. We've got a project led by Mariana within the company to try to increase domain knowledge. The reason for that is that if a developer knows what happens to the tool, they know what should be expected from it, they know how it should work. Domain knowledge is quite crucial to us. And if people from memoQ start asking you in a lot of detail about your work, tell them. It's very useful to us, it's very helpful. I'd also like to thank the people that spend time talking to our product managers, spend time talking to us about how they do their job. This is incredibly valuable to us, and it's very important. Learning is something that we're trying to get better and better at. To some extent, memoQ has had a sweet spot where the customer that we worked best with was somebody that really understood translation technology. They had a lot of very strong opinions, and we knew they were awkward to live with, but they wouldn't live with anybody else. So they were kind of a perfect sweet spot, but we're expanding on that. We're getting to people that have come into managing translation from different avenues. They may have worked in a large company where they were in the content department and sent to the translation department and told, well, content and translation are more or less the same thing, run that department. And they don't necessarily know anything about, they haven't gone on a translation linguistic studies course at school. They haven't. So education is becoming more and more. And we're putting more and more time into that, and you'll see this in things like the memoQ in 90 seconds video on YouTube. We've got a memoQ Talks, and one of the ones published today or last night is our two keynote speakers, Mike Dillinger and Jay Marciano, talking about how much they love each other. It's great. This is a band from the 1980s in Hungary called Aggie and the Boys. This is our leadership of our production department. Aggie is the CTO, and the boys are Tomasz, who's head of development, Arpi, who's head of product, and Paul, who's an agile consultant. And together they've been transforming how we develop software and how we create value for customers. We've always known what to do. We've always known that we should be more agile. We've always known that the cycles for development should be really short, but we've never been able to do it. And Aggie and the boys have managed to do that for us. One of the things that's taken us some time to do, but it turned out, like last year we were claiming that the fact that we had developed TM Plus made it very, very good to take advantage of generative AI. At the time I said that, I had no idea whether that was true. It turns out that this is spot on. And we're really proud of how we've changed TM. Most of our competitors have been ignoring this, thinking it would go away. But the big thing that we do now is match machine learning plus human knowledge. You cannot bring the human knowledge back in without some sort of infrastructure to bring the human knowledge in. And within our industry, we do that through things like TMs. This has become much more crucial to us. This is a good example of what our product management team does best. There's a lot of, we didn't quite know how customers did in-country review. We didn't realize how painful it was, but we found that people were doing things like printing out a PDF, getting a Post-it, scribbling on it, plonking on the PDF, scanning the whole thing, and sending it back to the translation department for fixing. Every company that was doing this seriously, it was causing them a huge amount of pain. Our product managers spent an awful lot of time talking to people, figuring out exactly how it's done. Again, in this podcast, which I've mentioned before, there's another one where Richard Sykes is talking about this particular tool, and he came out with a beautiful description about the UI for this. He said, UI is like good ballet. If it's done really well, you don't notice the physical work. And Jury here, who did the UI, said he's not wearing that dress. This is probably I think this is about the most innovative thing that anybody's come up with in a long time. This is what we do that matches machine learning plus human knowledge. It's what they call a retrieval augmented generation approach. We did not know it was that at the moment when it was developed. What we do is take a segment within memoQ, find out translation resources that match this, and send them to an LLM as context information. And what this amounts to is that we are on the fly creating a domain-specific machine translation for you. We developed this last November. We thought competitors would come out with it very soon. They didn't, and there's more complications with the reason why our competitors are finding it more difficult. Like some are coming out with things that are similar to this. I think they won't be good, and the reason they won't be as good as what we do is because we're better with the translation resources. We're better with the TMs, the terminology, the corpus, and nobody else has got corpus at this stage. And we've got an interesting solution here. Again, I'm quoting this podcast. Jay, when he was talking with Mike on the podcast that's just been published a day or so ago, he was saying that himself and Mike have been part of 4 generations of machine translation. And AGT is the 4th generation. The first generation was rule-based, the second statistical, the third neural machine translation, and the 4th may be a variant of neural, but they're all really a variant of the previous one. I was speaking on a panel last week at Lock World, and one of the other people at the panel made this point that was very clever, that in order to understand the next generation of technology, what you do is you really get to learn the current version, because there will be things, the people that know the current version of technology are the ones best suited to learn, the ones in the future. I'm going to be really quick. I don't think there's too much to say to this. If you haven't seen this, talk to somebody at memoQ. There's going to be a presentation later when I think Gabor and Adam will be presenting it. One other thing I would mention in terms of our product that I think sets it apart. Again, I was at memoQ, Localization World last week, and the first person I met came up to me and said, "Thank you for memoQ 10.6." And the reason that he thought this was a guy that ran a company called Muddlefront, who are partners of ours. And the reason why he thought memoQ 10.6 was so good was the parallel machine translate, the pre-translation using parallel MT. Again, it's something that nobody else has. It's something that's very cutting edge. I think I would ask everybody to, is Adam here? If you get a chance, talk to Adam Gogech. He will happily explain to you in great detail with lots of slides. But essentially what we can do now is do pre-translation much faster. It's a clever initiative. Oh, yeah, we had a baby last year. We were using memoQ to manage our own RFPs. And we asked a former colleague, Danny, to research this and see whether we could turn this into a business. And we did. We created a new business. It was originally called memoQ RFP. They've now been rebranded to Breeze Docs. The company seems to be thriving. It's, you know, there's a line in Elvis Presley's song that I was born standing up and talking back. That's the kind of company that's the kind of baby we had. There, sometime later today, I think 3:30 according to this, I'm not sure whether that's right, but Alessio will be talking about this. This is the way to manage RFPs. At the moment, there's just 3 people within the company, plus a development team that works very closely with them. They are doing quite clever things because they're starting from scratch. They're starting in an environment where generative AI is part of the picture. So, for example, what they do is that when you're answering an RFP, if the question's been answered before, they will give you the answer. If it hasn't been answered before, they will send contextual information to OpenAI, to Microsoft OpenAI, and get back an answer that you can edit. So you can end up doing RFPs that were probably the most painful thing that could be done. It becomes something, a breeze, I suppose, is the reason for the name. So thank you very much, and if there are any questions.
What's an RFP?
A request for proposal. It's a the way larger businesses work is they send a variety of documents with lots of questions to vendors. One is a request for information in RFI. Then they can send a request for a proposal where you have to answer a whole pile of questions and give them information that they will use to decide whether or not you win the business. Apologies for using the acronym. Any other questions, comments?